He said, you were once a very powerful king, and you misused your power. And he says, you have a karma you have to balance. That's why you're king. They say, you were king of Atlantis in the last Satya Yuga, 13,000 years ago. And you were a demigod. You were part God and you were part human. And you were creating, you were expanding Satya Yuga to create a heaven on earth. He says, come here, I want to show you something. And he takes me to the center of Mount Kailash. Well, I can tell you why. I get led in there, and there's this whirlpool of energy that's going up through there. And there are these monks that are walking around in a circle, and they're chanting mantras. And I'm at the top of Mount Kailash, and I literally become Shiva in that moment. And I can see and feel what Shiva is doing when he's meditating. People know that whole area is incredibly sacred and powerful. But so Babaji he's a guardian, three-dimensional. But you know, Babaji is real. He's still alive. He's a very beautiful, loving, powerful being. That was my experience.
Yeah, he is. And he's
So
actually,
the good news is nobody's being punished. Nobody's, people have an experiment. Because remember, the third dimension is an experiment in consciousness. So apparently I'm done with mine. The truth about extraterrestrials is going to come out. And when that happens, everything is going to change. The entire economy of the world will collapse. And there's going to be an explosion of awakening. And people who would never have even thought about extraterrestrials and all of that, past lives, are going to be forced, because it's going to be a scientific reality. This is one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing, and why, my father, the physicist, gave me this understanding about, now I can link, basic physics about dimensions and then add the spiritual aspect to it. And
hi, this is Akanksshaa. If you're new here, please subscribe to my channel. If you resonate with me, please like, comment, and share. Welcome to Multidimensional Soul Podcast and a Talk Show. On this show, we talk about deep spiritual and mystical experiences of people which we normally shy away talking about. We are more than our physical body. We are spiritual beings on a human journey. And we discuss how a soul exists on multiple dimensions. We discuss science, technology, and spirituality point of views and perspectives on this show. Our purpose is to open our minds to limitless possibilities and our hearts to love and shine the light within bright. Welcome to another episode with Michael Denney, aka Mahadeva. This is the second conversation or part two conversation, and you can watch it on its own. But he has shared some mind blowing stuff in the first conversation as well. So you might want to watch the episode that was released last week. He talked about his contact with the extraterrestrials, how he did the CE5 experiments, which are taught by Dr. Stephen Greer. Michael, that is Mahadeva, talked about extraterrestrial dimensions. How do ETs of high vibration communicate with us? His father was a physicist. So, what did he learn about dimensions? From science and spirituality perspective, why is Earth a focus of universal attention right now? How can you validate your experiences? How do you escape the karmic cycle? And how we all are actually deities, and how to awaken to that truth and restore our soul memories. So do watch that. And I had intriguing and interesting conversation with Mahadeva. I love talking to him. I hope you love this episode too. We have with us today Michael Denney, also called as Thunder Wizard, and goes by the spiritual name Mahadeva. And he's an extraterrestrial contactee from the extraterrestrial spiritual masters, also ascended masters from Earth. A very warm welcome, Michael, to Multidimensional Soul Talk Show and a podcast. It's a privilege to have you here. Namaste.
Thank you. I'm privileged to be here, and I'm so grateful that you allowed me to come on and share my story with you and your friends.
In your case, when you performed experiments and when the higher beings started connecting with you and upgrading you, what happened is you realized and remembered your true self. And that is really higher than awakening. And that is something that people still have not experienced. And they need to go through this process as such. Well,
Yeah, everybody's going to have their own experience. And again, I'm going to share something that's going to sound completely unbelievable, but I now understand it and I accept it. And again, I say this for two reasons so that people know what happened to the earth and why things are the way they are. And number two, they will accept it when they're told this. Because if you talk to these beings, they will tell you. And in my meditations, I will have people, when we go out of Earth's atmosphere in our astral bodies and we call these light beings to us, I will say, look into the eyes of these beings and have them show you how they see you, or ask them to tell you who you are. And then I tell them, now repeat back to them what you heard. Because when you repeat back to them, you're actually lodging it into your consciousness. And it will be challenging because they will tell you things along the lines of what I'm going to tell you. So all that stuff I just told you, imagine if that was the only thing that happened to me, that would be enough. But the other thing that was going on is that the same guy that showed up and said, you are a probability, he also showed up at that same time. It might have been the same day or the next day, I can't remember which. And he showed up to me and came into my room. I felt his energy. And again, the same thing, the pressure on the chest, the bliss, Kundalini rising, and I'm, going into a completely different dimension. He says, we want to make you king of earth. And I thought to myself, I said, how is that even possible? There's no way that one person can be the king of the entire planet. That's what I'm thinking. And he says, you're king. We want to make you the king of earth. And he starts showing me that I'm going to create this 5D, beautiful, again, I didn't even believe in extraterrestrials a week before. I mean, I'm already, and I start losing it. But they won't stop telling me this. They keep coming back and telling me this. It comes back again later, and I'm like, so I don't understand King of Earth. I'm going to be King of Earth? He says, no, you already are King of Earth. What? I have to pay taxes. I have to pay rent. What are you talking about? This is what I'm thinking to myself. You don't talk like that to these people, right? But I'm thinking that to myself. And he goes, if you don't want it, we'll give it to somebody else. I said, no, I want it. I just don't understand it. And then he comes back again, and then he says, you were king of earth. I was? He says, yes, you were king of earth. You were king of the whole earth. And it doesn't make any sense, right? So then I start hearing about this shift. I start hearing about this 5D shift and the solar flash event and all that. So I want this to happen, right? So I call my light being friends and I communicate to them and I say, tell me about this 5D flash. Tell me about this solar flash, this ascension event. I said, when is it going to happen? And they said, when you decide. Now, it sounds like everybody says that kind of stuff. When you decide, you're like, right? So I go, yeah, I know. But when? When is it going to happen? And they said, when you decide. We're waiting for you. So after they tell me that 3 or 4 times, I say, okay, fine, I'm just going to do it. So I had this idea to do a meditation, a group meditation, because I got a channel. I thought I'll bring my friends with me. So I do this meditation and I fly out to the sun in my astral body and I take my friends with me and we decide to chant this mantra. By the way, this gentleman gave me a mantra. He gave me a Shiva mantra that, as far as I know, I've never seen in any scripture. And it is Hua, which is, as you know, Hu is Shiva's mantra, Hum. It's a weapon. It destroys negativity. So Hu Ah, the R is rajasic. It creates. So it's tamasic and then rajasic. It destroys and creates, and that's Shiva, right? So he gave me this mantra. I didn't think anything of it. So I start chanting this in this meditation, and I'm saying to people, we're now in the center of the sun, and we're chanting this, and we're going to send solar radiation to the earth and bring ascension. And it was a very powerful meditation. No big deal. I've done lots of powerful meditations. I can feel my crown chakra, all that. And great. I say, okay, guys, we're all done. And I turn off the computer. There are so many light beings in the room, and they are absolutely beside themselves with joy. And they are, and I mean, like, I'm overwhelmed with this, all of this joy, and they are like, they're coming out of their skin, and they're like, thank you so much. You have no idea what you've just done. And they said, oh my gosh, you did it. You did it. I'm like, what did I do? What did I do? He said, watch what's going to happen. The next day, we had those huge solar storms. Remember that were hitting Earth, like way back in the beginning? And it scared me, because after that, I could feel my body was responding to the amount of energy, and I got scared and I stopped doing it. And so they were telling me after that, then they go, okay, now that you've done this, you have no idea what you've started, and like, we'll get back to you, right? They're all gone, and I'm still flipping out, like, what? All I did was meditate. What is going on here? So a day later, I go to sleep, I'm in bed, and that's when they were showing up at that time. When I go to sleep, they would show up in my room, and you can feel their presence and all that kind of stuff. So this feminine being shows up, and the feminine light beings are so amazing. You know, the power of the feminine, you know, the true power of the feminine. So she comes to me and she says, "You're gonna get an upgrade." And I must have had a stupid look on my face, because she goes, "Now say thank you." I said, "Thank you." She leaves. And then I'm waiting around. I don't know how long, a few minutes goes by. This power shows up in my room. And there is a being of an energy I've never felt. And just being in his presence, I thought I was just disappearing. It was so powerful. It was everything I could do just to stay in his presence. And he said, because of what you've just done, meaning that meditation, he said, you are now, and I know how this sounds, but bear in mind, everybody listening to me will have one of these titles. He says, you are now Supreme Lord of this universe. Now, you think I just heard that in my head. That's not what happened. I felt this energy hit me. And it was an energy of a God creating with his mouth, you know, like God said, God spoke, and boom, the world exists. He said that, and this energy hit me. And something in me changed so much. I was in bed for 2 weeks. I couldn't get out of bed. I was in so much pain because my body and my mind were resisting. You know, like I got hit with this energy. I didn't know what the heck happened. Then later, or somewhere along those times, it gets all blurred. This being shows up, and he says, you don't understand. He said, you were once a very powerful king, and you misused your power. And what happened is you created the framework for the dark forces of humans that are ruling this earth now. He said, you created that. You didn't do that, but you created the setup for that. And he says, you have a karma you have to balance. That's why you're king. Now, again, this is just coming to me as energy, and I don't know what to do with it. And so for another week, I indulged in feeling crazy, and I didn't talk to them. I'm going crazy. This guy shows up, and I've never been yelled at by these beings. This was the closest that they came, and this being said, you have to believe what we're telling you about yourself. It's extremely important. You have to believe us. And because he's my friend, I said, okay, I'll believe you. I don't understand it, but I'll believe you. Now that was about 2.5 years ago. About 3 or 4 months ago, I'm sitting here on my couch, and I get light beings showing up every day. So light being shows up, and I can feel it. It's very pleasant and joyful, and I'm used to it now. And I close my eyes and I say, "Yes, my friends, what would you like to talk about?" And these beings say, it came up on my left side. So I know that Pleiadians, because I've experienced them, they show up on my left side. This guy shows up on my right side. Pleiadians show up on my left side. So these beings show up next to me, and I'm talking to them, and they said, "Do you remember when you first met us?" And I started getting this feeling, and I started really realizing that these were Pleiadians. And again, that's hard for me to accept, that whole concept. So back then, I was still struggling with am I making this stuff up? Pleiadians, Arcturians, you look on, it's all over the place. It's just, So I say, "Are you Pleiadians?" And they say, "Yes." And then they start to tell me. They say, forgive me, this is going to be hard to say. They say, "You were king of Atlantis in the last Satya Yuga, 13,000 years ago. And you were a demigod. You were part God and you were part human. And you were expanding Satya Yuga to create a heaven on earth. And you were expanding this all over the world. And society became very, very high tech. And they said, we were your counselors. We were your advisors." And they said, when Earth started coming out of Satya Yuga and started to descend, they said, you started creating these technologies, the pyramids, other kinds of stone circles all over the world. In fact, there are some out there that have yet to be discovered. They're under, they haven't been dug up yet. But they said, you and we together, we created this technology with frequency. And I had like armies of priests and priestesses all over the world in these special like Neolithic sites. I mean megalithic sites and pyramids. That's why pyramids are all over the world. And these people would chant and they would pray, and it would create these frequencies. And the pyramids were actually frequency generators that were so powerful. They drew from, like, Egypt is in the navel of the earth. It pulls all of the energy from everywhere. And it creates this frequency that goes up into the Earth's aura. And you created this aura around the Earth. And this was really beneficial during Satya Yuga. But as Satya Yuga started to fall, humans had to shift, and you wouldn't let that happen. And you kept on using our technology to create this perfect reality. And they said, because you couldn't tolerate the thought of us going down to eventually Kali Yuga. And they said, we were telling you to stop using that, and you weren't listening to it. What ended up happening is that even though the energy level was high, people's consciousness was going down because Earth was moving away from the galactic center, right? Because that's, Satya Yuga, you're 100% connected because we're closer to the center of the galaxy or the universe, or I don't know what it is. And then as we move farther away, we go down into Treta Yuga and Dvapara Yuga and Kali Yuga. So because I wasn't allowing that to happen, and I was keeping the energy at an artificial place, then people started losing their consciousness, but they had this awareness of the power of this technology, spiritual technology. And they started creating like black magic. And they then started rebelling against me. First, they came to me and they said, Mahadeva, we can take this and we can control people's minds and the power that we have. And at first they're telling me it's a good thing. And I can tell this is obviously not a good thing. Like, no, that's not what this is about. And they said, you don't understand the power that is behind this, and we need to use this in a good way. We need to control these people. We need to, right? And so then I tell them no. They rebel against me. And because of the technology we had, there was a horrific war. And there was, I mean, I think it's the Bhagavad Gita talks about the weapons that were used. That's what they're talking about. And then I was assassinated. So they came and assassinated. Now my soul comes out of my body, and now these people have access. They've now taken over Atlantis, and they have access to this technology. And then the gods show up and they say, we got to stop this. Because if they get a handle of this, I mean, they could destroy more than Earth. So then they send the meteors and whatever that crashed into, at that time it was the Ice Age, crashed into all of that ice at the top of the Earth and flooded the whole Earth and destroyed everything, completely wiped out the whole civilization. Now, during this time, there were people in Atlantis that were still following the truth, and there were people in Lemuria who were still following the truth. They shifted up. They're like the light beings now. They're in a higher dimension. I was supposed to go with them. And because after I had died, my soul, I had so much shame, karma, I was so attached, I fell down into Earth, and I've been reincarnating for the past 13,000 years, beating myself up. So the reason why I had such a huge, powerful, instantaneous awakening that almost killed me was because I have this karma, and I have to do my job to help shift the Earth back. So the good news is we are now directly opposite that. If you look at where the yugas are, we've come out of Kali Yuga in 1700. We're in the beginnings of Dwapara Yuga, and we are not in a normal Dwapara Yuga state. The world is still in a very destructive place. We're still living in Kali Yuga mindset because it's repeating what I did. What I did is I kept it artificially at a higher place. They've been keeping it artificially at a lower place using technology. And so now things are going to shift in the opposite direction. We're going to have this huge, huge shift up. And so my job, I'm doing these mantras, and, we get sometimes, not a whole lot of people, sometimes, only a few hundred people after it's been online. But the power of these mantras and the power of this meditation is such that we are changing the world. Every time we do these meditations, something will happen in the news and everything will shift. According to the light beings, I'm not saying this. We did this in August of this year, August 14th. It's on my channel if people want to go and do the meditation. We did this very powerful meditation on August 14th. And afterwards, the light beings showed up, as they often do. And they said, you have no idea what you just did. Like, what do you mean? They said, you've won. You beat them. I said, I did? They said, yes, you beat the dark forces. And I'm looking around, and the world hasn't changed. It's the same as it was. And I go, okay. They go, watch what's going to happen. Watch what's going to happen. The next day, or maybe 2 days later, Donald Trump almost gets his head blown off, and he survives. And they said that wasn't supposed to happen. If he had gotten killed, regardless of what you think of him, I'm not telling him he's good or bad. I'm just saying if he had gotten killed, that would have started World War III. The world would have absolutely blown up on itself because his followers would have absolutely rebelled, and they would have pulled out guns and all kinds of craziness. And then we would have been locked down and it would have just gotten really bad. They said, you and your meditators did that. And every time we do these meditations, something shifts. So again, I'm not saying this to make myself look good, because the truth is that when just recently, when these beings came to me and they told me what had happened, I felt so much shame come out of me, and I couldn't remember where it was coming from, but it was horrible. And then when they told me that I had been assassinated, I felt all this pain and sadness that people, and I don't remember any, but I'm filled with all these emotions. And so I can tell this is a past life that's starting to now come through. So I don't remember everything. I still don't understand everything, but I accept it. I accept everything that they're telling me because everything they've said was going to happen has happened. And the point of that, again, is not to make me look good. It's to let your viewers know you can have this. But here's the thing, you have got to ask. So if you do the very simple protocol, Stephen Greer, it's very simple. It's just the CE5 protocol. I've slightly modified it just a little bit, and I call it interdimensional meditation. But it's basically that you meditate, you imagine yourself coming out of your body, going up through the atmosphere into space, and you don't have to be good at it. It doesn't matter if you see anything. You just have the intention to be out there. That's all that's necessary. And then when you're out there, you send an invitation mentally, and you say, if there are any beings of light who love me, in case you're worried you'll get attacked, don't worry, you say, if there's any beings of light that love me, I would like to talk to you. Does anybody want to talk to me? And you're specifically asking to see them in their true form. And so who knows what will happen? One of the things that happens a lot is that people will sort of get a feeling that they're connecting to something. Sometimes they'll feel that energetic jolt. Sometimes they'll see in their mind like a spaceship, or they'll see a being. They'll see a being like this, or they'll see a light being, or they'll see some humanoid being, and they'll have this feeling of love. And that means that you're now in contact with your spirit family. And then my suggestion is to ask them, do you have anything you want to tell me? Start there. And then what will happen is your imagination will start creating a dialogue. And you'll think, I'm making something up, but there will be something about it that feels different. You might feel something in your body. And they'll say something that might be challenging to hear. Either they'll tell you you're a god, or they'll tell you, you really need to look at this part of your life, or we love you more than, and you'll feel love, something like that. And you'll start to feel that this is more than just my imagination. I've never experienced this before. And one of the ways you've had a real communication is at the time it happens, even if there's a lot of energy, your brain will try and talk you out of it. And you'll go, you know what, I think I made that up. But then you'll wake up the next day and you'll talk about it as though it really happened. And then you go, wait, I didn't believe that yesterday. That's not how our fantasies work. Our fantasies, we believe the fantasy, and then the next day it fades into something, into nothing. Now, if you follow that, that is a higher dimensional doorway, and you can follow that. So I'll ask these beings to teach you. Ask them to show you who you are. And you'll have whatever experience you have. Maybe your dead relatives will come and talk to you. Maybe, who knows what. You'll remember a past life. All that kind of stuff happened with me. So most importantly is that you'll wake up to your deity essence. And the faster that people wake up, the faster the earth will shift.
You had mentioned that you got your memory as king of Atlantis and ruling the entire world. You had also talked about these beings guiding you and giving you some predictions. Now, when you talked about the Yuga cycle, what I understand is we're not just ending the Kali Yuga and going into Satya Yuga, but we are going into something called as Golden Age, which is completely different from the Yuga cycle. We are completely ending this Yuga cycle, the cyclic form, and we are ascending, and that's why it is Ascension. So, what predictions for this ascension have these beings given you?
Well, I like that you say that. So maybe I said it, maybe I didn't, but there's two beliefs about the Yuga cycles. What most people believe is actually an outdated misunderstanding, where they think that the Yugas last for millions of years. But the Kundalini yoga master Sri Yukteswar, Yogananda's teacher, he actually he came to understand that he created a new understanding. So we don't go from Kali Yuga to Satya Yuga. That doesn't make any sense. We go from Kali Yuga and we go back up. So it's like the cycle goes like this, right? So to answer your question, I don't know that the Yuga cycle is going to end. What I do know is that, as I said, we were coming out of Satya Yuga, and I artificially kept it at a level it wasn't meant to go. And it broke. It was like a rubber band that was stretched too tightly, and it broke, and we fell further than we were supposed to fall, much faster. So we went hurtling towards Kali Yuga. So the opposite is going to happen now, because it has to balance itself out. So we're coming out of, we came out of Kali Yuga in 1700. We've been living in Kali Yuga, even though we're technically in Dwapara Yuga. And so what's going to happen now is the shift is going to go further up than it normally would, because it has to balance out. So of course that's going to create a golden age. So what they've told me is, and this is frustrating because sometimes I can't get a clear answer. And the reason for that is they don't live in the third dimension. So they'll say, you wouldn't understand. So here, you know, we don't want to frighten you, or we don't want to give you information that you don't understand. But what they showed me in a very clear vision that I absolutely couldn't ignore was that we were going to have an event that everybody would see, everybody would experience. And the result of that event is that people's religion would transform into true understanding. So people are going to think that, you know, if they're a Christian, they're going to think that Jesus is coming to earth. You know, might as well. I'm not saying he is or he isn't, but they're going to see Jesus coming to earth. Buddhists are going to see Buddha in the sky. You know, Krishna worshipers are going to see Krishna. They're going to see God in whatever form they believe, or they'll have that feeling. And then what will happen is they will shift beyond that, and they will see reality for what it is. They will understand. They will have direct connection to the source, to God, whatever you want to call it. I've had my experience, and I believe these beings did that to that level because of, you know, what I just told you. That's my karma, my job. That's my job. People are going to have whatever their experience is, but we're going to get rid of the idea of religions in the sense of my religion is true and yours is false and you're going to hell, and no more religious wars. We're going to understand, you know, the essence of, you know, like the Christian religion that says that the kingdom of God is within. We'll understand that. You know, when Jesus said, don't you know that you are all gods? People don't know that. He said that according to the Christian religion. I'm not Christian anymore, but even if I go by that, he said that. You know, obviously all the other religions say that at some point, that the whole point of it is to realize that you are God. People will realize that. Now, they may not have full experience of it in the sense of, you know, they're going to walk on water, but that will then carry us back up to a new Satya Yuga. Now, to answer the other part of your question, because there's some truth to that, I saw that. I didn't believe in Lemurians, for example. And I saw something about Lemurians living in Mount Shasta, and come on. And then I said, wait, I'll just go and see. So I closed my eyes and I went over there, and sure enough, they were there. Very beautiful, the most beautiful beings I've ever seen, and of a completely different nature I've never felt before. And I showed up, and I was, you know, I realized that they had been alive when I was alive, and they shifted up, you know, when I fell. And I started apologizing profusely. I'm so sorry for what happened. I'm so sorry for what I did. And they said, you don't understand. They go, it's you. You're back. They said, did you wake up yet? Do you remember who you are? We've been waiting for you. And they started telling me that you could have shifted up with us. You chose to fall. You didn't have to. You could have stayed up here with us, and you could have done your job from up here. So those are beings who aren't going to go through the Yuga cycle anymore. They've shifted up. So I don't know. I have to assume that some people are going to shift up to 5D. Some people are going to go through a higher yoga experience. So what my friends have told me, somebody came to me once because I didn't like the idea that everybody isn't going to shift. Because some people were saying not everybody's going to shift, and I said no. Again, now I know. That's what I did last time. No, everybody has to, right? I said no, I can't believe that. And somebody said no, Mike, it's it's a 3-level thing. There's going to be 3 octaves. There's going to be a lower octave, a middle octave, and a higher octave. And I said I don't believe that. Well, one night I was asleep. I woke up in the middle of the night, as we always do, and I was turning over to go back to sleep. And there was a being in my room, and I don't have a piano in my room, but somebody was playing the piano and hit all 3 octaves. Bing, bing, bing. And I went, okay, that's interesting. Maybe I'm having a weird dream. I went back to sleep. A couple hours later, I woke up again, as we always do, getting ready to turn over. Bing, bing, bing. And I went, okay, if they tell me something twice, they're trying to get my attention and tell me I'm not making it up. So they were saying, no, she's right. There's going to be 3 octaves. So there's going to be a 5D. The Lemurians, who are humans, are already there. They're waiting for us. Some people are going to go there. There are going to be people who are going to shift to a higher level of Dwapara Yuga. And as I understand it, what will probably happen is that the world economic structure will collapse. So the banks will collapse, governments will collapse, and people will now become, they will become communities again. And so people will start over again, and what will be important is family and children and friends, and they'll have to recreate another society. And if they want, they'll be able to shift up. And then there will be unfortunately, there will be the dark force people who will, because they want power, and because they're empty and in a lot of pain, they will want to shift down, and they will shift down to the 1984 kind of dystopian hell. But they can leave there if they. The one thing I've learned, every now and then when somebody has a near-death experience, it's very rare, but somebody will go to hell. And if they're in hell, it's because they were usually, complete atheists and very miserable and very unhappy and refuse to believe in their soul and refuse to believe in all of that. And so they will be in a hell. But the moment that they reach out to whatever God they believe, boom, they'll be taken out immediately. So the good news is nobody's being punished. Nobody's, people have an experiment, because remember, the 3rd dimension is an experiment in consciousness. So apparently I'm done with mine, at least, to this level. But there are people that aren't done. They still have to learn. And that's why it's frustrating. You see people who continuously make choices. We know, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And they don't see that. You don't understand. And then they end up destroying themselves. But everybody has an experiment that they have to live out. And so we have to let everybody finish their experiment. I hope that
Right.
answers you.
Yeah. What I understand is, and why I said that the Yuga cycle is going to end, is if the simulation is going to end, then obviously the Yuga cycle is going to end. For those who ascend, for those who choose to ascend, and there are some who are using their free will and choices and not choose to ascend. So
Yeah.
they will still go through the normal cycle as such, is
Yeah.
my understanding.
Well, listen, I'm guessing. I don't have a clear answer, because again, I start asking those kinds of questions and they go, you're thinking in 3 dimensions. That's not how it works. So I'm doing my best to try and figure it out, but I think it's something along those lines. And as throughout this whole process, and I think people should also take this, I'm totally open to be wrong at any point, but that's my guess based on what I've seen and experienced and what they've told me.
You talked a lot about your Indian origins in the past incarnations, and I do remember you talking about meeting Mahavatar Babaji in your astral travel experiences. So, can you talk about your Indian connection and connection with Babaji?
So my spiritual name is Mahadeva, I didn't pick that. It turns out that it aligns extremely well with my Vedic astrology. My ascendant is in, I think it's the first section of what is that? I can't even of Leo. What is that? The sun. And again, I can't think clearly when I'm talking these things. Anyway, according to my astrology, I live in the center of Leo. That's like my essence is there. So the syllable that works with that is Magha, the Magha nakshatra. So I'm like the center of Magha. So that turns out that's a great name for me, Mahadeva. My name Michael. My parents got close. They didn't quite catch it. Some woman said to me probably 20 years ago, she was a channeler, and she said, "Your guides are going to come visit you tonight." I said, "Guides? I don't believe that." And sure enough, I was sleeping, and this blonde-haired woman, I'm thinking now she might have been a Lemurian, I don't know, but this blonde-haired woman shows up, and she goes, "Hello, Mahadeva." And by the way, this woman said, "They're going to tell you your name." I'm like, "Wait, what?" So I remembered that. I remembered this being calling me Mahadeva, and then I decided to take that name. I know that I've lived in, I think, virtually every society on the planet. I'm a master of Yoruba West African shamanic drumming. I'm a Kundalini yoga master. I'm a mantra master. I'm a master in Chinese qigong, and now I'm mastering the runic stuff of my current ethnic background. So I must have past lives in all of those things. So you're asking me about Babaji. So I don't know my history with Babaji. All I know is that, again, I had heard about Babaji and that he still exists, and I had seen that his cave, right? Which I think you're going to take people to his cave, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, yes. I have been there in August, and February again we are going.
Yeah. So I said, I'm going to go see if I can connect to him. I mean, what have I got to lose? It'll work. So in my astral body, I go and I travel, to the cave, and I go in there, and I'm traveling through the cave, and boom, this energy hits me, because I say, "Is Babaji here?" And I'm expecting, that he's going to be there, and I'm going to bow to his feet and all that. And he's like, "Mahadeva, it's you." And he's like, "Oh my God." He was like beside himself with, like, Lord Mahadeva. Okay. He says, "Come here, I want to show you something." And he takes me to the center of Mount Kailash. And in the center of Mount Kailash, I mean, if people know that you can't climb that mountain. I mean, the Chinese own that mountain right now, and nobody's allowed on there. People try to climb it, and they like age 100 years, or crazy stuff happens. Well, I can tell you why. I get led in there, and there's this whirlpool of energy that's going up through there. And there are these monks that are walking around in a circle, and they're chanting mantras. And they, not all of them, but some of them go, "That's Mahadeva," what are you guys talking about? And then I get taken up to the top and I'm at the top of Mount Kailash, and I literally become Shiva in that moment. And I can see and feel what Shiva is doing when he's meditating. It gets even crazier than that. As this energy is coming up, there is a higher dimensional extraterrestrial ship. I don't know what dimension it's in, but it's very powerful. And it is like beings are coming and going from that place. People know that whole area is incredibly sacred and powerful. But so Babaji is he's a guardian of that. And whatever else he's doing, I know that he's a guardian of that. And anyway, that was my experience with Babaji. So I know Babaji exists because I experienced him. I haven't talked to him in a long time because I don't want to bother him, and I don't feel like he and I have anything going on at the moment that I'm aware of. But we must have some connection, because otherwise, why would he treat me with such respect? He must know me from somewhere. Anyway, so again, that was my experience with Babaji. But what it taught me is that everything we've been told is true. They're not just stories. The story is we live in this three-dimensional. But Babaji is real. He's still alive. He's a very beautiful, loving powerful being. That was my experience.
Yeah, he is. And he's actively guiding people on ascension right now. When you talked about a lot of these changes happening in the world, like banking systems collapsing and economies collapsing and the governments collapsing and all that, did they tell you any timeline when this is going to happen?
No, whenever I ask for a timeline, they say things like when you decide, but understand that from their perspective, time isn't linear anyway. So time, what we perceive as timelines, is directly associated with the actions that we take. So if we act on our spirituality, we shift the reality that's coming. What I can tell is that from their perspective, it's already happened. They say it's happened already. So it takes time to show up in our reality. What I can tell you is that what is happening right now is going to create this. I'm not going to get into specifics. I think people should go to Dr. Stephen Greer's website and watch the movie Battle for Disclosure. But he's already said that the dark forces are launching an attack against him. They might even arrest him because he has whistleblowers that are going to tell the truth about everything. And all of the rumors that you've heard, I'm not going to mention them because I want your channel to stay on YouTube, but all the stuff you've heard about all the horrible things, they are going to come with actual evidence and they are going to bring it forth to the world. And when this happens, the infrastructure of power as we know it is going to collapse, because when people see, and what will happen is, among other things, not only will we find out all of the horrible things that have been done and are being done, we'll be aware of all of the horrible black magic that has been done, but we will realize that we have technology now that could get rid of all of, for instance, we live in a world that is ruled by petroleum. Petroleum is the economy. The economy runs on petroleum. So if there was an invention that gave people the ability to have all of the power that they needed without electricity, without petroleum, the entire economy of the world would collapse. But people would be filled with prosperity because they would be able to create whatever they wanted and they wouldn't have to pay for it. So that's going to come up. And also the truth of extraterrestrials is going to come out. Now, the reason why the dark forces don't want us to know about the truth that I'm telling you, which you can hear is different from what you're seeing if you go on and watch the news, they're telling you something else. The truth about extraterrestrials is going to come out. And when that happens, everything is going to change. People will not be able to deny any of it.
So, what I understand is there is going to be a mass disclosure in July of 2026 or sometime in 2026 of the extraterrestrials coming here. Definitely, I know from other people who had come on my podcast that Venusians are going to come and disclose. Do you have any information with regards to that?
Do I have any information on the disclosure?
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, that information is available. The reason why I'm hesitant to talk about it is because if I get into the details, YouTube censors this kind of truth. So I don't want to put your channel in danger. That's why I'm saying go watch Battle for Disclosure. Go to Stephen Greer's website. He's got 3 or 4 movies out. Unacknowledged is another one. Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. He talks in very clear terms about what is going on and what is going to be disclosed. But and I don't have a timeline. My experience is that I think it's going to come sooner than 2026, but I could be wrong about that.
Okay.
What is happening right now? This is the turning point. Like right now, this month, December through January and first few months of 2025, that's when things are really going to start to change. Maybe it'll take a year before gets through people's, filters and they hear it. But again, what's going to happen is there are people that don't want you to know that ETs exist. Because if you find out all the stuff I just said, you'll find that out. And then you'll have no need for governments or, anything like that. That information is going to come out. And then people, even though there are things going on right now that are trying to convince people that ETs exist, but they're trying to tell you that they're evil, right? Watch, that's what's going to happen. They're going to start telling you that ETs are dangerous. They've been doing it for a long time. So what they're doing is they are, without trying to, they're making people who don't believe, like with me, they're making people who don't believe in ETs go, wait a minute, the government says that ETs exist? What? What the heck? And then they'll start looking up stuff. They'll start looking up Dr. Greer's things. They'll start doing CE5. Maybe they'll run into my content or other people's content, your content, and then before you know it, these people will start awakening, even though what was happening is that the dark forces were trying to stop you from awakening. And one of the things that I can say is that there's a project called the Looking Glass Project, which is basically a technology that the government has had, ever since going all the way back to the Sumerians. And they have this ability to manipulate timelines based on, they know, okay, if we do this, if we do that, then people will respond out of fear. So they're doing all kinds of things to get you afraid. And once you're afraid, they can control. And what they found out is after 2012, no matter what they do, it backfires. And so that's where they're at right now. They're doing all of these things, and it's, as you can see, it's backfiring. No matter what they do, it backfires on them and people wake up. And what's going to happen is they're going to try something very soon. And when they do, it is going to backfire in a huge way. And there's going to be an explosion of awakening, and people who would never have even thought about extraterrestrials and all of that, past lives, are going to be forced, because it's going to be a scientific reality. This is one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing, and why, my father, the physicist, gave me this understanding about, now I can link, basic physics about dimensions and then add the spiritual aspect to it. And why, emotion, and for instance, why it's impossible to shift to a higher dimension and do anything evil. This is one of the biggest lies. You're hearing this from people saying, that beings from the fourth dimension are coming and they're stealing our souls, right? You've heard of all that. Very popular stuff. That is a lie. And it's a lie because it's impossible. From a physics perspective, it is impossible to be in a fourth or a fifth dimension and have any negativity, because in the third dimension, we experience separation. I don't know what you're thinking. You don't know what I'm thinking. I have to talk. Otherwise, you don't know. But in the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension, you immediately feel the other person's feelings. You know who they are. And so if you did something to hurt them, it would hurt you right then. Just like when people have near-death experiences, they die, and all of a sudden they feel all the horrible things they did to people, and that's what's going to happen. You get to a higher dimension, you can't cause anybody any harm. Once people realize this, and they'll stop being afraid of flying saucers or anything like that. They'll know the difference between the fake flying saucers that humans have created and the real ones. And once that happens, they will lose all of their fear of the unknown. And then, like me, they're going to just chase after it. And again, before you know it, you're going to have a world full of avatars.
Yeah, beautiful. Mass disclosure, mass awakening, and heaven on earth. Essentially, that's what. Okay. So we've covered a lot today. I have a few questions that I ask all my guests. So can I ask you those questions?
Absolutely.
If you were to explain a multidimensional soul to a common man or a lay person, how would you explain it?
I would say, right now, can you feel yourself, your existence, your essence? And most people would say yes. And I would say, that is God. They might say, no, it's not. It's just my emotions. I say, no, it's not. Your brain doesn't have the capability of creating that experience. Science has proven that. So if you listen to that and you go deep into that, which is in your heart center, and you follow that all the way to its source, you will get to God, because it means God created that consciousness, that feeling. And if they don't understand it, I would say, just think about it. Just ask yourself a question. How is it possible that I'm going to stop existing? This consciousness right now, there's no way this could stop existing. Body will fall, die, but I won't. Don't believe me? Okay, meditate on it. You'll find if you think about it, your common sense will tell you, I'm eternal. Now that you have that knowledge, go explore that. See where that takes you.
What is holistic well-being according to you?
Holistic well-being is operating from your soul. Now, your soul operates from joy. And so that means that you have to live for your own joy first. It sounds backwards, but you have to live for your own joy first. And you must do those things that you enjoy. It is a commandment. There's only one commandment in this universe. There's not 10, there's only one. And that commandment is, you must give your soul its greatest desire, because your soul is God. If you are living a life that is, you're doing it for other people, you're trying to be rich, you're trying to make your parents happy, you're trying to make the government happy, you're trying to make your girlfriend happy, your husband happy, and you're not living for your joy, you are breaking the one commandment, which means you're now separate from your soul. If you live from your soul, then your body has access to complete energy, your mind has access to complete energy, and you will have health and wellness. You will have wholeness. You will be a whole and complete. In fact, the word heal in Old English meant whole. It's just a different pronunciation. So when you say health, you're saying wholeness. And wholeness is nothing more than a direct connection to your soul. If you're unhappy, like I said, if you're unhappy, you're unhealthy, and you lack prosperity, then ask yourself, what am I not giving myself? Oh, that's right. I'm trying to make my husband happy, trying to make my parents happy, trying to make God happy. God doesn't need you to make him happy. He's right here. Make yourself happy and you'll make God happy. If you live that principle, and I mean this as literally as I can because I've seen it. If you live from the principle of being happy, I kid you not, Shiva himself will get on his knees and worship you, because he will expand as a result of that. And that means you're the most powerful God that exists. If you can make Shiva get on his knees and worship you, then there's no being greater than you. And how can you be unhealthy if you have that experience?
What is the ultimate purpose of life according to you?
The ultimate purpose of life is what I just said. It's even more important than all of these awarenesses that I've had, the awakening to my other soul. Those are details that help me. I have a karma I have to fulfill. But again, the most important thing is being one with your soul. When you're one with your soul, you are one with God. And once you have that, I mean, there's nothing. There's nothing beyond that. And, I don't know. Everything else we do is we just do as an exercise for fun, including spirituality. We just something we do for fun. Little kids have this. Little kids. I was 4 years old. I remember being 4 years old, and I had this awareness. I went, I'm never going to die. It's impossible for me to die. That's because I was just coming from that place, and I knew who I didn't know all the details, but I knew that I was God. I wouldn't have said that, but that's what I was saying. That's my answer to that question.
Okay. What is love?
So that's probably the best question ever. It's the most important experience we can have. I would say that love is seeing yourself in everything and seeing everything within yourself. Because when you have that connection, you can't help but love everything. Even the most evil people. if we're in a state of love, we would look upon them with compassion, and we would want them to be happy. Love is connecting with yourself and connecting yourself to all other selves. Which again, you come back to becoming God. That's why God is love.
What is self-love?
Self-love is, well, besides what I've just said, another way to say it is to have the consciousness to know what actions to take that will be both beneficial to you and all other beings. Because one of the mistakes we have in this world, because when I tell people, love yourself, what I just explained, they'll say, well, yeah, but if I go do what I want, will that hurt others? I mean, at what point do I do what's good for me or do what's good for somebody else? And I say, that problem doesn't exist. If you do what's good for you, you automatically help others. Now, if you are doing something harmful to you, you are also harming them. So in this reality, let's say, somebody's born in a house with their banker and they realize that they want to be a musician. And the father says, you can't, you have to be a banker just like me. And he says, Dad, I love you. Like in, the Narasimha myth, Prahalad, Prahalad's father said, you have to reject Vishnu. And he says, Dad, I love you. And you're my father. I worship you. But I cannot reject Vishnu. I can't do it. And he tries to kill his son. And then Narasimha comes out of the Kundalini and destroys the evil father. So when you do what you love, even if your parents hate you for it, even if everybody hates you for it, they're not hating you because it's harmful to them. They're hating you because you are showing them how to evolve and they're not ready. So you learn how to take action. So in that case, you say the conscious action is, I'm going to go become a musician. And that is what is best for me. And I know it will help my parents, even if they get mad at me.
What is your parting message for our audience today?
You are loved more than you can possibly imagine. You are the single most beautiful, important being that has ever existed. And it is impossible for the universe to exist without you. Know that. And if you can't feel that, that's okay. Act as though it's true. When you do that, every other being in the universe will praise you and thank you because you will be helping them. When you love yourself, that goes out. Every other being can feel that, especially the gods. The gods, they don't feed off of us, off of our worshiping them. They feed off of us empowering ourselves. So just know that you are loved more than you can possibly imagine, and that there is literally nothing you can do that will make you more lovable than you are right now, because the only thing you need to do to be loved is exist. Well, so my message to your viewers are to keep watching you and listen to everything that you say, because everything I hear comes out of you, feeds my soul and gives me knowledge and awakening. And so I would say, please listen to Akanksshaa.
Akanksshaa, yeah. Thank you so much. And how can people connect with you?
Great question. So my YouTube channel, you can see right here, is at Thunder Wizard. So you can just go there. And if you want to learn more, I have other things I can teach. And this supports my work. You can go to thunderwizard.com. It's my Patreon channel, and you can subscribe. And anytime you subscribe, you will get huge amounts of teaching and learning. And you can work with me directly. All kinds of stuff. So those are where you can go. Thunderwizard.com and YouTube at Thunderwizard. My books can be found at michaelwilliamdenney.com. Denney is spelled DENNEY.com. If you want to read my books about extraterrestrials and other stuff.
We'll give all the links in the description.
Okay, very
in the
good.
video description. It's been absolute pleasure having you on this podcast. Thank you so much.
My privilege. I'd come back anytime you ask. Anytime you ask, I will come and talk to you and your friends. Again, things are going to start changing. So, but thank you so much for allowing me to be here. It's been my absolute privilege. And again, I'm extremely grateful.
Thank you. Definitely, I would love to host you again. Thank you for watching and listening in wherever you are in the world. As Ramdas says, that we all are just walking each other home. So, thank you for co creating the new earth along with me and our guests. And if you resonate with me, do subscribe to my channel and do let us know how you find our episodes. Thank you so much. Lots of love.